They began to pull off the vinyl siding, and underneath was this log structure. So everyone was excited and wanted to know the story behind this place. We're studying the evolution of Jonathan Street over time, specifically focused on this cabin here.
This is part of a really vibrant African-American neighborhood known as the Jonathan Street community of Hagerstown, one of the oldest free black and black communities in the entire state.
This has been a forgotten black community, and our anchor here says it matters. You know, this is what we project to be the oldest home in this community. The cabin has become a showstopper.
So the goal here is to not only rehabilitate this structure, but to learn more about the people who lived here and the people who made Jonathan Street the community that it is. And that involves archaeology.
So some of the most exciting things we're finding are personal items. We're finding doll parts, parts of tea sets, marbles. And what's really interesting to me is we have these bits of redware, and a lot of times those are made both in Maryland and Pennsylvania. They're related to food preparation and storage, and oftentimes to German immigrants.
This property was originally owned by the founder of Hagerstown, Jonathan Hager, and then it transferred to his son, his daughter, and then there were other whites within the community that owned this home. And then towards the late 1800s, early 1900s started the continuous black ownership of this, and during that period was when this community became the Red Line community until the passing of the Civil Rights Act.
Back then, in the mid-19th century, this was on the very edge of Hagerstown. It was far north. It was pastoral. It was isolated. It wasn't in the middle of everyday life. But as time went on, the neighborhood began to grow, the town began to grow, and development kind of enveloped this little small cabin. We know that from 1903 on forward, it's primarily going to be African-American families living in here, and before that, it's primarily white or people of German ancestry. As we dig down, we can tell you exactly where that color line is. We can then compare and contrast the way that people lived, not only in the 19th versus the 20th century, but between different racial groups. What were the differences between, say, food preferences or choices in consumption patterns? Did they like certain decorative items on their table or certain types of plates, and what does that all mean? And how does that compare to other sites across Maryland? We want to learn more about the people who lived here. We want to know what they ate, how they lived, how well off they were, what did they have access to here on the edge of Hagerstown. But the other goal is to bring attention to this small little cabin and hopefully rally enough support around it to help preserve it and restore it so that it can be lived in one day again by another family.
We're going to save as much historic fabric as we possibly can, but it's going to require probably lifting the structure, putting in a new foundation, making sure the roof is tight. I mean, we want to turn this over in such a way that it's in good shape. This building tells a story of the resourcefulness and the challenges of people who lived in this community over a long period of time, and its renovation and its resurgence is a part of that story. It's now just one more layer in its history. And archaeology is just a huge component of that because it paints a much richer story and gives us a much greater understanding of what happened here and the lives that people who lived here led.
A lot of times African-American history is glossed over. It's not always illuminated and told, and this is really our chance to start here on this small little lot, on this small cabin, and use this as a jumping off point to tell the story of Jonathan Street and this neighborhood.
I feel this is important because if you look at 2020 and the social landscape of our country and some of the issues in regards to systemic racism that we are still fighting today, learning the story of this community and how it's been left behind, whether it was through practices or whether it's through legislation, I think it's important to understand the African American experience. And more importantly, it's important for people that are from this community to really know the rich roots of what they've come from and what they've been able to overcome. And we believe that we are in a rebirth of this community where we are able to revitalize it and bring it back to its former glory. We've planted our flag here at this cabin to tell the rich story of the inhabitants that were here, but we would like for that revival to happen throughout this community.
Speaking of dark forces unleashed on the universe,
Right.
what's in the mysterious black bag?
We're gonna find out in December. We're gonna pull the floorboards off and then we're gonna jump back in.
Cat, maybe?